Students, parents, you are at an interesting moment in this odyssey called the college selection process. It's the point where most of the anxiety should be past, and there certainly is anxiety in this process. I wish we could do something to lessen it, but it's really there. A couple of years ago, there was a New Yorker cartoon that showed a little forlorn-looking kid sitting on the floor in the living room with school books scattered around and a backpack, and his mother's looking down, and she says, "There'll be plenty of time for playing after you get into college." Well, you've gotten into college, so good for you. You know, our job today really isn't to sell the school. We've already done that. Honestly, it's to give you, as Dean Bates said, the most information that we can in one final day to help you make that choice that is now before you. And choosing a college is really, it's not like buying a toaster or a vacuum cleaner, you know, where you can go to Consumer Reports and they tell you the features. I mean, that can be helpful, and we certainly have college rankings and all that. But it's really more like falling in love. It's a relationship. And so the question, students, for you is, where does it feel right? Does it feel right here? Does it feel right somewhere else? And you will know. You will know at the end of the day. So I'm not going to try to sell you today. I'm just going to talk to you as though students, you already had decided to come, that you are already members of the class of 2017, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can expect over the next 4 years at your time at Skidmore. And I want to have my talk in 3 different pieces, 3 themes. The first theme is commitment. I want to talk about expectation, and I want to talk about aspiration. Let's talk about commitment. What does it mean to say that we have accepted you into the class of 2017? Well, it really represents a commitment on our part to your success, because we do not admit students who we think cannot succeed at Skidmore. We're not a school that says to the entering class, you know, look to your right, look to your left, a couple years, 2 of you aren't going to be here. We don't say that. And the reason we don't say it is we have amazingly strong applicant pools, and so we believe that every student who comes to Skidmore really ought to be able to succeed if you do your part. We'll certainly do our part. But we say this even in our strategic plan. I'm going to read you a sentence from that. It says, we commit to being a college that inspires, challenges, and supports the highest levels of excellence for all our students, not just for some or even many of them. That's our commitment to you. That's what we will do. Again, you have to do your part. Well, what does this mean? Well, first of all, we are committed to being the most inclusive community possible. We have a lot of different kinds of people here. There are a lot of different ways to be a Skidmore student, and we want to be a place where every student feels that this is his or her college, and feels that way from the first day on campus. And we're working hard on that. We're not perfect yet. We have a ways to go in some dimensions, but we are working on that very hard, and it's part of our long history of being a place that cares about community. Secondly, academically, we are committed to being a place that will help you become excited about ideas, even more so than you can imagine today. To take charge of your own education, to become responsible for what you believe, and that really is the essence of the transition from high school to college. As I said before, to achieve levels of excellence in your work that you can't even imagine at this point. And by the way, another commitment we have, if student loans are part of your financial aid package, we're committed to having you graduate without some kind of crushing loan debt. Our student average loan debt is actually quite reasonable, I believe. So those are some of the commitments that we make to you. What about expectations? What do you find when you get here at your 4 years at Skidmore? What can you expect, and what will we expect of you? Well, first of all, we expect to provide you the best possible educational opportunities to prepare you for the rest of your life. And let's start with professional life. You know, it's an interesting time, students. When you graduate from college, the odds are that you are going to go out into a world marked by enormous change, rapid change and all that, great opportunities, great challenges. Most of you, on average, will have 9 different careers over the course of a professional life. That's not jobs, that's careers. How do you prepare for that? How do you prepare for a job that hasn't even been created that you might be doing in 20 years? We have a young man named Chris Ladd who graduated around 2005. And Chris was an English major. He sang in an a cappella group, wrote for the student paper. When he graduated, he wanted to go into publishing, which he did for a while, tried a couple of other things. And now, today, if you have the tablet version of the New York Times, at the bottom there are banner ads and so on. He's responsible for producing those, and he creates the apps, the special apps, like their political app and so on. He didn't take any computer science courses when he was here. And by the way, so it's 2012 when he got that job. Go back 10 years, 2002. What's an app? Point taken. So that's the world you're going to be in. How do you prepare for that world? We think that a liberal education of the kind that you receive at Skidmore is the best possible preparation for living in a world that's marked by such change. To learn how to read intensely, to read incisively, to think for yourself, to make connections among different areas of knowledge, to ask the difficult questions, and, as we say, creative thought matters. Creative thought really is going to matter for you across the course of your career, and we foster that creativity here at every turn. We'll also commit, and this is something you can expect, to help you get launched into your professional career after you leave here. We find all kinds of opportunities, ways to encourage our students to take internships. We just started a new program last year that's very, very exciting. It's run through our academic departments. It's called the See Beyond, the Summer Educational Experiences Learning Beyond Campus program. And these are competitive awards that students can apply for. They have to have a project that they'll complete off campus. It needs to be related to the major, but it doesn't have to be an academic project per se. The departments decide who gets them. There's enough of a stipend there that anybody can afford to take this opportunity if they win it. Let me give you an example of what some of the students who won those awards last year did with them. One student did museum work at Hudson River historical sites. Another went to New Delhi and taught students in the slums. A third, Johannes Simelane, class of 13, who's a self-designed major in public health, was able to return to his native Swaziland and complete a public health research project related to the spread of AIDS. This is a project he wanted to do, he thought was important, and the government of Swaziland wanted to do it as well, but they didn't have the funding for it. The See Beyond Award enabled him to complete this goal, and it's a very exciting opportunity. The second thing that you can expect to hear a lot about is the concept of responsible citizenship. We take that very seriously. After you leave Skidmore, you're not just going to have a professional life, you're going to have a civic life. And we expect you to be an informed, responsible citizen. Our nation's currently going through some fairly difficult political times. There actually seem to be some localized outbreaks of bipartisanship in the last couple of days. That's an encouraging sign. But we still have a ways to go, and particularly in our public discourse. We are not very good at talking across difference. And we certainly are going to need to be in this country. And as someone who has graduated from a liberal arts college, we would expect you to take a leadership role, not necessarily to run for office, but there are lots of ways that we're all engaged in the political life. One of the ways in which you can be a responsible citizenship is to know what you need to be an informed, responsible citizen. And one of those areas is scientific literacy. There are very few important issues in public policy that we're facing today that do not have some kind of scientific dimension, whether we're talking about climate change and how to respond to that, the use of antibiotics in animal feed. That's a huge one. 80% of all the antibiotics we produce in this country are fed to animals. What are the consequences of that? And what about antibiotics that are given to small children? There seems to be some indication that they can kill off the bacteria in a small kid's gut that might help prevent childhood obesity, and we're seeing an outbreak of that, an epidemic of it. What about all that? What about hydrofracking? There are so many different questions. Science cannot give us the answers to these questions, but our discourse needs to be informed by scientific literacy, which in many ways is solely lacking in this country. For graduates from a liberal arts college, really our expectation for you is that you are scientifically literate enough to participate in an informed, responsible way in these kind of conversations. Intercultural literacy is something we also talk about. It is a very complicated world today, much more diverse, and wherever you are, there are all kinds of people that you'll be interacting with from different backgrounds, different nations, different cultures, different religious groups. How do you deal with that? I met a graduate from Skidmore from the 90s a couple of years ago, works in a bank in Miami, and she said, I don't manage people, I manage cultures. And she talked about the 5 different cultures that were represented in her workforce, different people who had to work together, and it was her job to help them do that. You know, in this country, we are still deciding whether a diverse, heterogeneous, multi-ethnic, multicultural nation can achieve the necessary sense of community and civic organization and civic identity that is necessary if we are to be a successful democracy. We need you to be part of that effort. Sustainability is another thing we're going to talk a lot about in the next 4 years at Skidmore. Environmental responsibility. These are important things. And of course, creative thought matters again. Personal identity. Professor Solomon's going to talk about that in a minute. You know, this is a time when young people really do find out who they are going to be, or at least who they want to be for the rest of their lives. What are you going to do as you make those choices, the kind of person you want to be? And your college identity is part of that. I didn't go to Skidmore, I went to a different school, but there are very few days when I don't put my class ring on, and that identity is part of me. That was 40 years ago. It's hard to imagine. But some of my best friends are still people I met in college, and that'll be true for you. So what you do in college is a very important part of your foundation of your personal identity forever, and that's an expectation that we absolutely will help you fulfill. Last, aspirations. As we think about the kind of person you want to be, and the kind of person we hope you will be, we do have high aspirations for you. You know, when you come to a school like Skidmore, you're coming to an educational opportunity that really is available to fewer than 1.5% of all the students who are in college today in this country. We're talking about 18.5 million students in undergraduate school today. About 1.5% of those students go to a school like Skidmore, a high-end, small, liberal arts college. That is a very unique opportunity. When you graduate, you will join about 30% of the American public who have an undergraduate degree. Only 30%. That sounds like a very small number to me. If you look at the world, the percentage of the world's population who have completed an undergraduate education is about 6.7%. That is a very small percentage. When you graduate from a school like Skidmore, you have been given an opportunity that very few people in the world have. What are you going to do with that opportunity? The 19th century American educator Horace Mann once wrote, "Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity." Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity. Our aspiration for you is, if you ask the question of what victory for humanity you want to win, how are you going to put this Skidmore education to use, not just in your professional and personal and civic life, but what are you going to do to make this world a better place? And what are you going to do to make Skidmore a better place before you leave? There are a lot of opportunities to do that.